Welcome everyone. I'm Anita Whitehead from the KPMG Foundation, where I currently serve as president and chair. As a firm, KPMG has a long-standing values around education, and it's been a primary focus for our foundation for over 5 decades. But individually, I advocate for education, teachers, students, and schools. So it all comes today together in this chat that we're going to have. My personal interests as a parent, my professional priorities for the KPMG Foundation, and the expertise of my 2 stellar guests, Chuck Cascio and Peggy Brookins. So Chuck Cascio is a communications consultant, an author, a former adjunct faculty member at American University. He taught high school, receiving extensive recognition for his creative teaching. He's also, and get ready for this, the best teacher I ever had in the 11th grade at South Lakes High School in Reston.
Thank you, Anita.
So it's great to have you, Mr. Cascio, and we recently reconnected, and I'm still having a hard time calling him Chuck, so we're just gonna go with Mr. Cascio today. Peggy Brookins is the president and CEO of the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, an organization that we have recently partnered with as well. She has a clear understanding of America's teaching and learning needs, and her knowledge of teaching standards are really welcome today. So thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
So we're in a room full of business leaders today, and we would love to have you both share why should businesses pay attention to our nation's schools. And Chuck, we'll start with you, or Mr. Cascio.
I have no problem calling her Dr. Whitehead. Thank you, Anita. I think that one of the things that I always emphasize talking with people about how they can interact with schools most effectively, and this is whether they're parents or politicians or business leaders, it is that they should get involved at the very ground level. Okay, it's one thing to sort of remember what school was like when we were in school, or to experience school through our kids or our grandkids, but there is quite a difference between that and actually getting into the schools at the ground level. Going into a school, seeing what it looks like for teachers to put together their plans every day and then deliver those plans to their students. Think about it, for most high school teachers, they're working with an audience of 150 teenagers a day. 5 classes of 30 or so. And they have to put on an instructional show for them. Okay, think about that. That's 5 times a day that they have to do that kind of delivery. For elementary school teachers, they may be in a classroom with 30 kids of 8 years old, and they have to be able to work with them and entertain them and stimulate them for 6 or 7 hours a day. Okay, now I don't know about you, but when I take the opportunity to be with, a grandchild, I can't imagine doing anything other than being able to put them out on roller coasters and things like that, much less being, in a classroom. So, to summarize that very simply, 2 words: ground level. Think about that. Try to make your programs available at that level and get yourselves involved at that level. Go to the schools and experience what it's like.
And Peggy, you understand the importance of national standards for teachers. Could you explain that for the audience?
So many people may not know about the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, but you may have heard about A Nation at Risk and A Nation Prepared. When A Nation at Risk came out, the National Board is the result of that research, and we were formed from A Nation Prepared. And the premise behind that is to advance the quality of teaching and learning, that teachers receive the type of certification or professional development that increases and intensifies what they do in a classroom on a daily basis. And Chuck, you set up the perfect segue into, you know, I started teaching in the 70s, and therefore the National Board did not exist until 1987. So as a board certified teacher myself, my certification is in AYA mathematics, which is high school mathematics, is I could see this clear delineation between before I was board certified and after I was board certified, not only in myself, but in my students as well. And we think about, you know, our 5 core propositions, and the last panel talked about this quite a bit, relationship building. Everything starts with relationships. You cannot teach who you do not know. And you cannot motivate people in order to have them reach their hopes, dreams, and aspirations if you are not steeped in content knowledge and pedagogy. And so that's what the National Board Certification does. And if you think about the medical field and getting your board certification, it's an advanced certification that, you know, you go through a performance assessment. This is not, I'm writing and somebody reads it and they see you. They see you in action. They see the impact of your work on students every single day. And therefore, when you go through this rigorous process of achieving your board certification, you know, and everybody around you knows what it means. It's a national certification, and it doesn't mean something different in Florida than it means in Michigan. That when you say, I am an NBCT, everyone knows what that means and the impact that you're having on children.
So Chuck, you talked a little bit about us needing to see teachers, but can we go a little deeper on experience and supporting? Like, what could businesses actually do to get behind some of that?
I think that the experiences and things that businesses can do to sort of get behind that is to almost have like an agreement with your local schools where you will be able to go in and observe and take some notes and make some comments that will be helpful to teachers and to students and administrators. But at the same time, I think that it would be very helpful if businesses would allow students, teachers, administrators to be invited into their organizations. So it would be very helpful for teachers or students or administrators to be able to spend a day or two to see what it looks like to do the work that you're doing, okay? There's, you know, there are elements of workforce, and I've been fortunate in that after my 27 years of teaching, I went into, you know, other areas that were more business oriented, but there are similarities there that are sometimes missed if they're not experienced firsthand. And so that's one of the big things that I would encourage, Anita, that, you know, for businesses to have this kind of relationship with their school districts where they can come in, and when I say observe, I don't mean just for one class, you know, 1 hour or something like that. I mean spend the whole day there, but at the same time provide opportunities for students, teachers, and administrators to spend a day or two observing what goes on inside of the businesses. A lot of times people don't realize that. They think, you know, businesses, they're sitting in an office somewhere nice and cozy, and, you know, life is good, it's easy. They don't realize the many different levels that there are. I mean, of course, there is an awareness of it, but because of their teaching and because what they're involved in every day, they haven't had that kind of exposure to it.
So it's actually great advice because I took his advice to heart, and recently at the KPMG Foundation, we launched a new program called Reaching New Heights, which is all about supporting the next tier of colleges and community colleges. And over the last few weeks, I've actually had the opportunity to tour sort of the first 5 recipients of our funding. They range from Wagner College, LaGuardia Community College, Seton Hill University, Springfield Technical Community College, and Central Washington. And what was exciting to me about this partnership, and actually opened my eyes, was yes, the funding is there, but the schools, each school wanted our professionals on campus to not just educate them about what it means to be a business professional, but like creating access, which is what we're all trying to do, right? And so I think for me, this partnership of these 5 schools has just been so exciting to see what the art of the possible is. So Peggy, a related question for you. Society's putting more and more demands on teachers, and public school teachers are working without the necessary support. Can you tell us how the national teaching standards set students up for success later?
So one of the things that we do is the certification itself and supporting teachers, because they are the ones who have the ultimate impact on students within the classroom. We have cohorts around the country who are going through this process, but our focus has really been in underserved communities, under-resourced communities, and looking at where students are exposed to teachers who may not even have a teaching degree, that they are just trying to fill classrooms at this point. And we don't think that that should happen to any student in this country. A lot of the work that we're doing around the country, specifically in Mississippi, some work that we're doing right now, the governor, we have been working with Governor Reeves, we worked with Governor Bryant before that, and you think about how they improved their NAEP scores, and that was intentional by having an impact on the professional development of teachers within that school. And then you think about the fact that the governor gave this money to support teachers who are going through the process, but that support of paying for the process, we partnered with Apple Computer to have the technology piece imported in that as well, because you need that technology piece and how to understand the use of that. But also, you know, what was not where we wanted it to be. There was room for 300 teachers and 1,000 teachers applied. And we were just at a loss of, you know, we choose these teachers, but they were primarily in the Delta area. We also got the Walton Foundation to kick in a little bit more money in their geographic locations where they wanted more teachers to go through this process, and I will not stop until the other 700 are a part of what we can offer to improve their teaching and learning within the classroom and to have a greater impact on students. We're seeing it already. We're seeing it in their NAEP scores. We've been working with them for a number of years, and the networks that they're associated with around the country, primarily supporting teachers of color, because that's what we find in the Delta and students of color in these under-resourced communities. And that real focus on how do we prepare you to meet the current realities where, you know, they may not have received that in higher ed and things have changed over time, but the standards that they go through and standards that they implement within their classroom, and this is not something different that you do on a Saturday and you talk to your friends about. This is what you do every day within a classroom and how intentional you are to meet the needs of every student in front of you. And you think about what that does for a child as they move through the system, and how, you know, I used to tell my students, I want you to leave here with a sense of confidence that borders on arrogance, to know that you can do anything that you set your mind to. And we want that for teachers as well, to know when you walk in the room, because nobody wakes up every day and say, I'm here to do a bad job. They wake up and say, I want to do the best job possible for my students, and this process of board certification, the analysis of what you do, the reflective practice around what you do every day to support every student is critical.
So Chuck, Peggy talked about technology, and we've all seen how technology's transformed the business world, but how can tech transform our schools today?
You know, it's really an interesting phenomenon these days, Anita, especially because there is a tendency to think that because we are now in a technology-driven age, regardless of whether it's for a student or a little kid, right on through, adults working in business, technology is there, okay? And education is an evolving process. Okay, so we need to understand that technology is there. It's not going away. It's going to be something that we need to figure out how we can use it in ways to enhance both traditional and new educational objectives. And that's something where I think businesses can really play a big, big role. Okay, for the teacher working with kids who are wedded to their, technology, sometimes it's really difficult to get through to them. But I've also seen where really creative teachers understand that they can get kids to use the technology that they have access to right in their hands to do something very creative. They can use that technology to enhance their critical thinking skills and their creativity, okay? By giving them an assignment, maybe that is spur of the moment, although the teacher has thought about it ahead of time, but to the student it seems spur of the moment. Okay, take out your phones. Okay, we just read a passage from, you pick the book, and now I want you to think about how that passage can apply to your lives. Okay, look at it on your phone, swap it with one another, work in a small group, see what you come up with. You have 3 minutes to do it, and then I'm going to ask for your presentation. Okay, so technology can be an extremely useful technology tool, and I think that a lot of business leaders are probably in a great position to help educators understand the way you use technology to drive the creative and critical thinking process in your work every day, and how that can be transferred to the classroom.
So excellent insights by both of you. As all of us know, that the past 3 years have been a really rocky road, right? We've seen the impact on education, not just with the pandemic, but racial inequities and the shifts between remote and hybrid working environments. But we all know that the truth is that the teachers today are doing much more than just serving the academic needs of our children. So with this in mind, I'd love to wrap up by asking both of you just what's the one thing you want this audience to take away from this chat today?
I think for me, we worked closely with business. Lockheed Martin, Duke Energy were our business partners from the very start. I spent 38 years teaching before I retired, and in that community of working with them, their support throughout this time period, internships, after-school mentoring, coming and setting up what we called Breakfast for Business, having them in our schools. But the best part about this is that you get the benefit of those students later in life when they have realized their own dreams. So, down the street from our school, there are 15 engineers from our school who are working at that Lockheed plant. And then 2 blocks down the road, there's Duke Energy, and we have students working with them. So creating those relationships, having those partnerships, there is a win-win for everyone.
And I would just add to that a little bit that support comes in many different ways. Look, 300,000 teachers have left the workforce within the past couple of years. That should tell you something. They need support. Okay, sometimes that support is ground level, as I've been talking about today. Sometimes it could be financial as well. The tendency to think that, oh, teachers get 3 months off, blah, 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 it's so easy, is totally wrong. And so the support that can be given, can take many different forms. And I urge all of you who are out there today to think about that and be creative. It might be something as simple as offering awards, financial, yes, for teachers in your communities, okay? And it doesn't have to be huge, and it doesn't have to single out one individual. It can be done, in a much more constructive and creative process. So that's one form of support, but there are many, many others. And I've tried to touch on them a bit today, and I really thank you for giving us the opportunity to present them to you.
And board certification support.
Yes, exactly.
Please do.
Please support them when they ask for that kind of professional development.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Peggy and Mr. Cascio. So to keep in theme of my past teacher, we do actually have some homework for all of you. We do want you to share what you've learned today, and reach out and collaborate with each other. We've heard that a lot this morning about partnerships are so essential. I want to continue the conversation. I know Chuck and Peggy as well. So we really appreciate the time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Whitehead.